Yeah, we're going.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know how to turn this one on or off. We'll get her in here for the next time. We'll just do it.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to BSides Augusta. If you've been here in years past, you know that this is more than double what we had last year, which was already about double what we had the year before. So in 3 years, we've gone from about 170 people to probably about 600 right now. I've checked it today. So it's we're really thrilled that you all are here. Really happy that you come and supported us at BSides, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Phil Panamera. I'll be hosting this track today, so if you don't want to hear me anymore after this, you can go to one of the other tracks that Doug and Mark are hosting. I'm pleased that we have such a great lineup today, so I'm just going to kind of step out of the way, but I do want to give you just a little bit of administrivia first, if you didn't catch it in the after the keynote, because I understand there were some audio difficulties in some of the rooms during Mark's administrivia. If you have those red tickets, if you still have two lines of red tickets, then you can still go back over to the giveaway table and drop a ticket in. It's like Chinese auction style. The giveaway's got them right there, so he's carrying them up right here in the orange shirt. So if you still have them, you can run over to the giveaway table. The drawing will be at 11:15. You have till 1 o'clock. Claim your prize. You actually have to either go back or we'll announce the numbers. You can go back and find what the numbers are and find out what you want. We're giving away network passes, a drone, a couple other really cool things. Chris Sanders autographed a few of his books for us if you want to pick any of those up. And I'm sure you can find Chris and get them to put some a special message. The CTF is going now in a room right down the hall here in front of next to the Chiron booth. So if you want to participate in the CTF, you can do that starting now. And finally, I think Mark mentioned it, and I don't see that there's going to be an issue here today, but what we've been telling everybody is to make sure you have your badge nearby. We did have to, as you guys probably know, some of you know, we actually had a long wait list. We had a wait list of about 100 people, and we had to tell most of them no. But thankfully this morning, we didn't have to turn anybody away, so that was good. All right, so I'm pleased to announce that we have Jason Frank here with us. Jason leads the Adaptive Threat Division at Veris Group, and he's going to talk to us today here in Blue Team number 2. So please give a welcome to Jason Frank.
Thanks, Philip, and thanks to BSides crew, Mark and Philip and Lawrence and a lot of the guys who put a lot of effort into growing this conference over the past couple of years. It's our second year, actually, attending the conference as speakers, and it's great to see the growth just kind of taking off, especially in this area. Today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about some of the stories and some of our approaches. I am a pen tester by trade. I actually want to run a group at this point of about 20 different testers, a company called Veris Group based out of the Northern Virginia area. We have exposure into a lot of the civilian government agencies as well as a lot of the Fortune 500 commercial companies as well. So we see a lot of different network environments. And what consistently comes across is during the outreach, when you go and you do the test, you run around the network, and then at the end of the test, you're usually briefing your findings. What consistently comes across is the blue teamers, the defenders. They're saying, hey, I didn't even know that this portion of the network exists, or I didn't know that we had this box here that was severely out of date, or I didn't know these credentials were out there. A lot of these things, as pen testers, we leverage in order to run through your network and hopefully obtain the data or the crown jewels that we're going after. So what we've done internally, and a lot of this is for our benefit, is we've developed a bunch of tools, scripts that we use on the red teaming side that we put out for free, open source, and our target audience initially was other pen testers. However, we do recognize that the blue team, the defenders, also need some help. And so what I'm going to do for this talk is I'm going to show you some of the tactics that you can use as defenders to help secure your network so that the pen tester that you bring in has a little bit harder of a time once they get there. Okay? Again, a little bit about me. On Twitter, it's Jason J. Frank. I'm a Black Hat trainer, teach the adaptive pen testing course, and probably have every single pen testing certification that's available. Some are certainly better than others. But why this talk? We kind of covered that a little bit, but what's also interesting is when we're doing our test, a lot of times the defenders, a lot of times our customers will want to sit with us because they want to learn. They want to say, okay, either how do I get started in pen testing, or how can I leverage your adversarial mindset to help proactively secure my network, as opposed to getting this report and saying, oh, well, I probably should have known about this plug before you told me about it. Why don't blue teamers have black hats? Some do. Some have budget. Some say, okay, well, you know, I'm coming at it with a couple different perspectives. However, some don't. Some are just underwater. Their time has been split so many times that they cannot keep up with all the demand and everything that's going on with everything. So my goal to you by the end of this talk is I'm going to show you these tactics, I'm going to give you the tool sets, and I'm going to make it easy for you to execute these things. We'll talk about that. If you ever looked at any of the how to secure network, usually first things first is you need to figure out what you're looking at. What do you need to secure? What, from a hardware standpoint, what is sitting on my network? The answer could be, well, things change. You might have a network where users are plugging in laptops, unplugging laptops, that type of thing. Or you might say, okay, well, for this server enclave where all my critical data, all my critical applications sit, that should probably not change, right? But you need to know what is normal. There's a lot of costs and politics involved. A lot of times when I talk to defenders, they say, well, Jason, I want to be able to do better, and I know that I can do better. It's just I have heard from upper management that they will not allow me to do certain things, whether it's political or because they don't have the budget to do so. As an attacker, what I want to do is I have to come in for a pen test, and usually my pen test is going to be anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. And so with that time frame, I have to drop in on Monday, become an expert on your network on Tuesday, and then use that expertise to hopefully build an attack chain and get to crown jewels by Friday. So that's 5 days to completely understand, digest that information, and make it useful from that perspective. And so you look at the blue team and you say, okay, well, you know, this is your life, this is your baby, you know, why do you not understand everything that's going on in it? Well, you know, that was my first kind of approach to it, but the reality of the situation is that there are a lot of hackers on defenders that don't allow them to do this. Usually what happens with my team is they have this adversity to doing anything that is tedious, anything that clearly could be automated. I gave the data, there's a nice little graphic that represents this, but from an offensive side, the lines of code that you have to write to be effective in your job is a lot less than the lines of code you have to write as defenders, because as defenders you have to be right 100% of the time. As attackers, my job's easier because I have to be right 1% of the time. So what happens is a lot of these tool sets that we write are we put out there open source, we put them out there, and the cost to the defender, if they choose to use these tool sets, is going to be their time. So they are available for anybody to use, regardless if it is pen testing or defending. I will say that the other thing about these tools is that typically they are just doing calls, discovery calls that are normal, and so they're not going to be disruptive. And that's crucial because as a defender, you don't want to do anything that operationally impact your network. Our tool sets, a lot of them focus on Windows, and the reason for that is because does anybody here know what the most common method for getting into an organization is today? I heard phishing. That is correct. So instead of banging against your boundary, most people, it's 2015, most people discover what a firewall is. Phishing allows you to send an email in, sometimes with an attachment, sometimes with a link, and compromise the weakest link in the chain. People, right? And so what we do is when we land our phishing attack, we're usually landing in a Windows environment. Why? Because Windows is typically what user resides in. And Windows also allows us to get the access we need to the NIC side, to the databases, that type of thing. Because typically those admins, those database admins, those NIC admins likely have a Windows side or Windows console that they have data on that people manage. So here's a typical attack path. We spearfish in, escalate access, we identify where we're going, and sometimes this is based on the customer telling us. Sometimes we have to kind of define it for them. But then we'll use that access to pivot to the databases, admin workstations, clients, and that type of thing. A lot of our team has been doing a lot of research recently and a lot of tool dev around PowerShell tools. And PowerShell informally has been named by us Microsoft's post-exploitation language because of how powerful it is in those environments. In pen testing, a lot of it is just using built-in functionality or admin built-in functionality, but in a different way. So you're leveraging a lot of the calls, a lot of the tools that are there to help you perform your actions. And so this is great because it also allows for a level of stealth. Because if you're using already built-in API calls to Windows, it's not going to look abnormal necessarily if you're doing these types of calls. Microsoft's really funny. They tried to put in this execution restriction. If you put a flag when you launch PowerShell and do dash protect bypass, all that stuff falls away. Some admins thought that was that because of that protection, they weren't allowed to execute custom scripts. Well, we're going to show you a couple custom scripts here that we're developing. In order to launch those, you just throw that flag in and you should be good to go. Let's talk about some of the tools we're going to cover. These are all free. These are all open source. Nmap, Eyewitness, which we'll cover, PowerSploit, PowerUp, PowerView, and Egress Assess. Most of these tools save Nmap and PowerSploit have been developed internally by our guys at the time. So. Here's our approach. Here are the 10 tactics that we're going to be discussing over the course of the next few moments. We're going to talk about asset discovery. We're going to talk about base image analysis. We're going to talk about your file shares. File shares are fun. As an attacker, who are your admins, where are your admins, how old are their passwords, and that type of thing. We'll go into a little bit more. The goal of this, though, is as you're knocking these off and as you're checking these off, as a defender, you're starting to build rapport within your organization. And so you build that rapport, and hopefully by the end of it, you demonstrated enough impact, that you now have the political capital to request the budget to get to further some agenda that you need. Because, and that's the biggest thing. When I said political before, when I said, defenders were being shut down because of politics, that's the biggest thing, is they say, well, you're not doing anything with what you have now, so, why should I spend money on this? Well, these are going to give you some quick wins, okay? Talk about asset discovery. This is asset discovery on the cheap. There are all kinds of appliances that do this, but if you do not have the budget to do asset discovery, what you can do is you can schedule a cron job with Nmap to scan your environment every 25 hours. Why 25 hours? Well, because what that will do is in about a course of a month, every 25 days, you will get a pretty good picture of what your environment looks like throughout the day. So you can start to create a baseline of what's going on. The other thing you can do is once you do port discovery around your network, you can use a tool called Eyewitness. A former employee of ours, Chris Trunster, actually wrote this. What this does is it runs out and rapidly grabs the web applications, the websites that reside in your environment. As a pen tester, I am very, very concerned about the web applications that you have, because typically what happens is company buys Box, they put it in their data center. The admin doesn't want to run into the data center every time they want to add in the box, and so there's a web interface involved. A lot of these web interfaces do not conform to whatever security policy the company has, and so they're left unconfigured, default credentials, that type of thing. And at that point, as a pen tester, I can now leverage that to do bad things within your network. And so we inventory all the websites to see potentially where our first link in our attack chain is. So you're going to notice with some of these slides, they tend to get a little bit long. However, the goal of this was, and you don't have to write all this stuff down now, the slides are actually going to be available afterwards. They're up on SlideShare at the moment. But we want to give you the syntax that we use, or that you can use and take back into your organization, so you can just run these things. We're going to show you expected output, and then you can use that in your go. What's going on here? That first Nmap command is basically running around your network looking for assets. The reason we're checking for those ports, 21 through 8443, is because typically those ports are going to be 95% accurate as far as what's in your network. If you just do a ping scan with Nmap, that's typically not going to work. One, because of firewalls. Two, because of ICMP. If ICMP is disabled, typically you're not going to find everything. So we use this method to be a little bit more comprehensive with our discovery. Again, right here you're doing asset discovery. You're doing hardware discovery, making sure that you know what's on your network. Once you get a pretty good list of what you think is on your network, at that point you can go ahead and do a follow-up port scan just to see what's running. And then once you do that, you can take that list and pipe it into Eyewitness. What Eyewitness does for you is it creates a little HTML document that inventories all the different web applications that are sitting in your network. Right? You once found we dropped into a network and they said, well, you can't throw any exploits, you can't really do anything. I said, oh, well, this is going to be a short test then. So we ran this, we did our discovery process, and we ran Eyewitness. And what came back was something very interesting. I've never seen this product before, but what it did was it was an Active Directory management platform. It was a web application that cached its server-side login. For cache login server-side. So I didn't even have to have credentials, I just hit the login button. Sure enough, I had the it was an amazing short test. So I always look at the web application piece. The other thing that you want to do is you want to take a look at your base image. How does IT deploy their new assets? Well, they probably have some base image that they can spin up for new employees. They give them a laptop. They have some sort of instruction. Here, go to town. What that means is that base image is probably pretty standard across the organization. And so if it is standard across the organization, and you can land on a box and you can escalate and you dump patches and all that type of thing, the misconfigurations on that image are probably consistent across the entire organization. Okay? So people say, okay, well, you know, I run Nessus on these things that, you know, I don't come back with anything critical, so I think we're okay. That's not always true, and we'll show you an example here. We wrote a tool called PowerUp. It's a PowerShell script that automates a lot of the privilege escalation attacks against Windows. And these aren't new and groundbreaking, but what they are is a collection of privilege escalation techniques that have been publicly released, but it's a quick way to check for them. A lot of the checks in here include things like abusing Windows services, abusing all kinds of different misconfigurations that are resident on the system. Here's the syntax. You download the script, you import the module, invoke all checks. What it comes back with is it runs through the checks, and if something pops, this little plus comes up here and says, oh, there's a vulnerable service here. Now, in a pen test, this is helpful to me because this is the weaponized commandlet that allows you to take advantage of this service. However, for you as a defender, you'll know that this one service has a problem. Typically, I see, what was the last one I did? Lotus Notes. If anybody still uses Lotus Notes, good luck. But Lotus Notes is poorly misconfigured and allows you to escalate the system privileges pretty quickly. Just get rid of it. I mean, it's a worthless product. Open file shares are my favorite because usually they're kind of a back pocket method we use as pen testers. I was in a banking environment one time, and they had everything pretty well locked down. They were using a VMware thin client system, provisioning system. The images were updated every week. And what happened there is they actually had firewall rules set up that wouldn't allow the workstations to talk to each other, which is great. Because if I can spearfish in, I can't spread. Even if I find a misconfiguration on that box, I can't spread laterally. I may be able to spread to the servers, but I can't spread laterally. So good on them for that. However, what I did find is a file share. It was everybody's file share, you know, E drive, whatever it is. Everybody has their own file share. If you traverse up that shared one and you see everybody else's stuff, it was configured so that you can jump into everybody else's stuff. So this was a bank, and we got in, and I got into the CEO's file share, and he had this nice little Excel document, not encrypted, name, address, account balance, social, for everybody in the bank. I looked at him in the outbreak, I said, why are you doing this? He said, well, there's some regulation that basically says that you have to correlate the accounts with actual people. So, okay, why is it unencrypted? That he didn't have an answer for. Open file shares are great. A lot of times, too, you'll see IT shares that have some passwords and that type of thing that you could leverage to move around the network. PowerView has a function. PowerView is, we talked about PowerUp, which is the privilege escalation piece. PowerView is another script that we wrote that allows you to run around the network. Essentially what it does is it adds Active Directory, where are all my objects? And then let me query all those objects and see what shares you have available. And so you throw this little check share access flag on there. And so if you run this as like a domain user, somebody who has no privileges on the network, and you run around and you collect everything that you have access to, it'll spit back this little list for you and say, okay, and some of these might be default, some of these, you know, are standard things that right here, but then you'll see a couple nuggets, and obviously, well, sometimes they look like this, but usually they don't. But there's usually always something that's going to allow you to, maybe it's a config file, maybe there are SSH keys that are leveraged that you can use to spread it in the network. Things like this are gold. You want to figure out who your admins are. If you're working in a large organization, this might not be a very easy problem to answer. Reason being is because, say you're part of some large conglomerate company, and this company is in the habit of buying other companies. Well, what typically happens there is that you'll have all kinds of users coming in, all these different groups that are created, and if anybody's an Active Directory ninja, they know that they can put groups within groups, right? So that things tend to get confusing as far as what permissions you have. And so what we did with PowerView is we actually did this. We put this thing in here where you can query for anything that has admins, right? You do get net groups that will query all the groups, but the admins or star admin star is just a qualifier. And then you can figure out the people within that group using getNetGroup. This is just a pipe. And then you can recurse. And what this will do is this will follow the chain all the way down. So if you're looking for domain admins and you may jump all the way down the chain and figure out who exactly your high-value targets are going to be within your environment. So that's one piece. From a pen testing perspective, that's one piece. From a defender perspective, you want to know where these people are constantly logging in. Why? Because you may do some extra logging on their stuff. You may pay attention to them a little bit more closely than somebody else. Or you may know that, okay, if one of these are compromised, that's bad news. Right? Here's a quick example of output. You can see that there are multiple admins here. We did a star admin star, so not only are we getting back domain admins, but also Linux admins. And again, that's one piece. Who am I targeting? The next piece is going to be, where are these people? So for almost every engagement as a pen tester, we go hunting for sysadmins. What that means is we take a look and see, okay, well, if we can pivot around, if we've demonstrated that we can move around your network, we're not just going to blanket spread across your network. One, because that's noisy. Two, that leaves a lot of artifacts. But what I want to do is I want to say, okay, if I'm at my box and I've escalated, now where do I go? Well, I'm going to go after the admins. And so at that point, what I'll do is I'll go hunting. So this is my favorite function within PowerView. It's invoke user hunter. And if you add this little tag show all flag, what this does is it shows you, it goes up to Active Directory and says, where are all my objects? And it queries all those objects over SMB. And remember, you can do this without being an admin. Any domain user can do this. Okay? Where are all my objects? I'm going to query all those objects over SMB. Who's logged onto the box currently? If you run this during the day, it's helpful. Who's logged onto the box currently? So you know not only where your admins are sitting, but you also know where everybody else typically sits. It kind of helps you build this data repository of what's going on. Who's assigned to what IP address? So this is what you get back. You say, okay, well, this person's logged in here, here, here. A lot of times you'll see sessions and file servers from other people as well. But yeah, nice little list for you. Again, and you guys might be saying, okay, well, there are appliances that do this. Yes, that's true. But this is kind of free and on the cheap for you. Stale password reuse. The reason this is a problem from a pen testing perspective is typically these appliances that come in and are supposed to do maintenance in your network will introduce a service account into your Active Directory infrastructure. These service accounts typically don't change passwords because, well, that would cause too much work. So those service accounts by design are supposed to run around your network and perform maintenance on these endpoints. So you have elevated accounts running around doing maintenance on the endpoints automatically. And so what you can do is you can say, okay, in PowerView, get net user, and I want you to filter, and you don't memorize this syntax again, as long as you'll be available. But any account that has not changed their password within 12 months. Your password policy might be 3 months, right? But are there any accounts out there that have not changed their password within 12 months? Sometimes what you'll do here is you'll catch admins who got lazy and they're just like, I don't feel like changing my password this time around. I'm just going to set it never expired. So this is what you'll see. You'll see service accounts and that kind of thing. I talked about a little bit about before, companies buying companies. Well, in an Active Directory infrastructure, typically what happens is you take this behemoth of a domain over here, and this other behemoth of a domain, and you put them together. And it's you create what's called a trust. And you can do very interesting things with trust. And yes, there's different settings. You can do one-way, two-way, transitive, non-transitive. However, if you can leverage trust as a pen tester to compromise other companies. So we're actually doing an assessment as we speak right now. It's an international assessment where they bought this company and they are trying to leverage the domain trust to jump into the mothership. We got it like 2 days ago, I think, so we were successfully able to do that. Here's the syntax, import PowerView, and then you can map your domain trust. What's interesting with this one, though, is you can output it to a CSV. And then you can use YED, I'll show this to you too. You can use this to kind of map out your network. All you have to do is import the CSV into YED, and this is what it will do. So if you start, say you drop into corporate over here, and your crown jewels are down here, you can go up, down, cross into the other company, and then move your way through until you get to the crown jewels. This is something that we will very regularly execute in a period of about 2 to 3 weeks. Assuming trust from this misconfigured. You can add in your VCs. Obviously, domain administrators, obviously enterprise admins, but there also can be other admins of your DC. So if you can compromise a DC, you have the domain. I'll show you this in a second, but get domain controllers and then get net local group. What this will do is it will return output to you. You'll see things that you would expect, like the administrator, there might be a local administrator, EA, DA, but sometimes admins will go ahead and just add themselves into the built-in administrator group, which allows them to log directly into the domain controller. Group policy preferences are fun. Typically what this does is it allows defenders to admin their endpoints. What's interesting though is with GPP, it actually puts out these XML files that are available on the DCs, and there are encrypted credentials in those files, those XML files, both usernames and passwords. The problem with that is that Microsoft, in its infinite wisdom, published the key to decrypt these things. So what you have to do is you have to go find them and then decrypt them, and then all of a sudden you have local admin passwords for across the network. As defenders, again, if this is something you're seeing in your network, get rid of it. There are patches available, and there's write-ups on how to roll that stuff. Again, PowerSploit is different than PowerUp and PowerView. This one was not written by us. But if you get GPP passwords, it's going to hit all the DCs and collect these files and decrypt them, and voila. You have usernames and passwords for across the network. These are simple things, and you'll notice too that most of everything that I showed you up until now has just been querying information. and then correlating it, right? It's non-intrusive. These tools are free, right? And a lot of these things, a lot of these queries can be done in the background while you're at your day job. The last thing I want to show you is a little bit beyond that. It's looking at border egress. Excuse me. We go into a lot of companies, and we've actually gotten a lot of attention recently from some healthcare companies because of the Anthem breach. But what they want to know is are we going to be the next Anthem? And so what we've done is one of our guys at the time, he wrote a tool. It's called Egress Assess. And what this will do is when we get to the point in the engagement where we know that we have the data, we're not going to sit there and actually exfil your data across your country to somewhere that you don't control, because customers typically get a little upset about that. So what we will do is we will generate data that looks like that data, and then we'll attempt to egress that out. And what we're looking for is seeing if your DLP solutions are actually doing what they say they do or what you paid them to do. I actually had an example one time where we were exfilling social security numbers, and they had a DLP solution in place, so they were actually pretty audacious about it. We were like, oh yeah, I'll catch it. Well, sure enough, we had gigs of social security numbers come out of their network undetected. And when asking them about it, they said, well, it wasn't preceded by SSN : I said, well, that's a simple regex. You better go back to the drawing board on that one. So, but at the end of the day, there are these DLP solutions out there, and there are blind spots that often exist. So you want to make sure that you do that. Egress Assess is out there. It works on a client and server model. And so if you get like a DPS, like on Amazon or wherever, you can set up a server out there listening, and then on the client, what you can do is you can generate data and then upload the data. It has the ability to do credit cards, socials, it has the ability to put together a full profile, name, address, that type of thing. And these are all random, it's all random data. And then exfil that out and see if your DLP solution is catching it. It has the ability to do multiple protocols, HTTP, FTP, SMB, a few other ones too. Can't see this really well, but this is hopefully what you should be seeing, is you should see an alert, sensitive data coming out over the wire and the data contents. One, you're testing the fact that your technical capability can see this stuff, and then two, you're testing that you have a process in place to respond to this type of thing. So, just to kind of wrap it up, I have given you these 10 different tactics that, from a pen testing standpoint, can easily be translated into the blue team side. You'll notice that a lot of this is recon and discovery. And so by having that information and knowing what you can protect or what you need to protect is going to allow you to do a lot better of a job and hopefully make the pen tester's life a little harder once they get into your network. They're repeatable, you can schedule them to run consistently, and you can run it in the background, so you don't necessarily have to be there monitoring most of these things. And these are free. Everything I've showed you is free, because we know budget is a concern, and we know defenders, are operating on a budget. And finally, again, these are going to give you a lot of quick wins so that you can start getting that report together so you can actually make some impactful changes in your organization. So I'll take questions. I don't know how much time that we have, but my contact information is there. On our website, verisgroup.com, the resources, we have all of these tools here, and write-ups and things like that. And I'll show you real quick, under our resources, right. I've been told I have to get out private. Under our site, we have all these tools that are available for download. You can just go here, you can get them on GitHub directly, or you can just download them, as well as some of the blogs and things like that. So, with that, I'll open it up to a couple of questions. I think we have a couple of minutes for those. Yeah,
You have tools tools or any advice from Mac-centric environments?
Mac-centric environments. A lot of times, so the question was, do you have any tools for Mac-centric environments? A lot of times what I will see on the Mac side is they will somehow be linked into the Active Directory side, so there is some cross-pollination over there. We, as pen testers, in most corporate environments, we haven't come across too many Mac, full Mac environments, so we haven't made a lot of progress there. Sorry. Any other questions? Yes.
You said slide billing, give an address for that or a website where you're from?
Did I not put them up there?
Yeah,
One
you
slide
hit 'em.
chat.
We're also gonna post all the talks on YouTube, so you'll get those.
This is the Blue Team Handbook Incident Response Edition. Any other questions? See, everybody's starting to ask questions. You're like, oh, there's prizes involved for this. Any other questions? Yeah.
You talked at one point about being noisy. So
Yep.
as a pen tester, are you usually given direction to not be noisy, or is the user population notified that, hey, we're having a pen tester? How's it normal?
Sure. So the question was, we talked about being noisy. Is your goal to not be noisy, or are users notified? It depends on the case. Typically, when we perform pen tests, they're a week or two long. And so they're what we call smash and grab tests. And what we tell people is we say, okay, well, we're only here for that week, and so we need to be, we can't worry about being stealthy necessarily, because attackers are going to have a long period of time to do what they need to do. We do offer a red team service that does incorporate things like staying in memory, staying off disk, and doing everything to kind of evade some of the things that are coming. So that we kind of term pen testing and red teaming as two separate services. This is an Alpha card sponsored by Alpha. They're doing some good stuff out here.
How would you harden around PowerShell? And then there's some stuff out there for that. I don't really do anything that's terribly great at logging.
How would you harden around PowerShell? Again, I'm meeting a pen tester. I'm not an expert in this, but I've been told that if you enroll PowerShell in Emmet, it makes things a lot harder.
Jason, you've got time actually for one more. This gentleman had his hand up right here.
Yeah.
The question was, for those that may not have admin access or admin rights to do some
Sure.
assessment, what's the most things above just standard use?
All this can be done through standard user access. You don't have to do that. However, you have to have the authority, obviously, to be able to do some of these things, because it is going to create network traffic. But these queries and everything can be run as a standard user, and Active Directory is actually designed that way. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.